wrote a script because I never write scripts, and I feel like maybe I'd be slightly more comfortable. I'm probably wrong about this, but I don't really think that ageism is that much of an issue on a grander scale of things, especially in regards to like prejudice against younger people specifically. What I mean by this is not to say that having an implied opinion about someone else's opinion or their voice as a result of age isn't negative, but rather that it's a type of discrimination that can't be compared to those who experience racism, homophobia, or like sexism, etc., anything like that. Age is ever changing, whereas your race and your gender and your sexual orientation are not things vary really, and you don't have any impact on them or any choice. Not to say that you have a choice on like your age, obviously, but I mean, it's something that isn't always apparent. I don't know, depending on what age you are. People will always find reasons not to value someone's opinion or to disregard their thoughts if it's not age, it's appearance, if it's not that, it's education. And I think that trying to overstipulate equality movements for groups that don't necessarily need them in the first place is a bit counterproductive and fighting just regular human nature itself. And what I mean by this is like, people will always value certain people's views over others. I mean, that's something that is just going to happen. It's, it's not society, it's humanity. It's just, how the world works. There's no changing that. And, you can say you're the least judgmental person ever, and that you look at everyone's view equally on an equal base, an equal whatever. But think of how many times you've heard a white cis person say something and you've just disregarded it because you know who they are, or who you've assumed them to be because, for all you know, they could be in another situation, whatever. There's lots of trans people that appear to be cis, and there's also lots of non-white people who appear to be white. So you can't, you can't always judge people based on appearances, and people, even in our community, do that all the time. Even the most activist of activists do that, and it's just, I'm not trying to step on any toes. It's just how people are. You can't really blame them for it. It's how we're wired to be. We try to analyze things and identify them, and also we try to domesticate pets and keep them inside, but clearly they don't want to be, so whatever. People just value certain people, it's just a matter of who you are and whose opinion you value more, because, I mean, you can talk about oppression until the cows come home, but who's to say that it's more right to disregard someone's opinion because I've been oppressed? I find there's a lot of excuse making and a lot of a lack of accountability for actions, because people just want to blame it on the fact that they've been oppressed or that they're not valued in society. And you know what, that sucks, but that doesn't mean that you can't be a decent human being and just take account for yourself and your actions. And it shouldn't be an excuse. It shouldn't be a get out of jail free card, because that's not, like, people can complain and do things. Younger generations do it a lot, and older generations do it as well, where one doesn't listen to the other because, oh, well, they don't listen to me. But, you not listening to them because they're not listening to you means no one is listening to anyone. And I don't really see how that's productive at all, to be honest. It just sounds like stupidity. It just does, I'm sorry. And I feel like that attitude is put towards a lot of things, instead of communicating, people just kind of get defensive. I think if you're gonna start pointing fingers at people and expecting them to act a certain way, you have to set the bar yourself initially. If you're asking someone, don't judge me based on, the fact that I'm older and I've gone through this, don't judge them because they're younger, or vice versa. If you're younger, don't go and say, oh, well, you're just old and you don't know anything. That being said, older people do face a lot of challenges in the sense that they're expected to leave the workplace. They're often not represented in media. Honestly, I mean, like, people expecting there to be representation of anything in TV, and, like, I don't know. This is a whole other issue in itself, but, like, people getting really upset because TV isn't, like, inclusive, or TV isn't, educational or whatever. Like, it's not giving the right definitions. I'm sorry, but it's TV. You want your kids to know stuff and to learn stuff, then I think you should take them into the real world, spend time with them, um, get them to read. Don't sit them in front of a box. Sorry, it's unrelated, but older people, if they're not financially well off, or covered financially, a lot of them face abuse in long-term care. Have lack of support and interest from others in general in life around them. When people think of older people, it's often in a dismissive way, regardless of, like, the context. Younger people do face a lot of criticism and lack of understanding, but I don't think that it's all necessarily uncalled for. This is probably really harsh, but the truth of it is your brain isn't formed until you're in your 20s. Somewhere around 25, I don't know, don't quote me. I'm probably, slightly off, but it's somewhere around there. Forget brains, but your personality and your opinions are, like, always forming. They're not, no matter what age you are, they're always changing. From a general standpoint, it's usually pretty safe to say that a 15-year-old has not had the same life experience as a 35-year-old. And I'm not saying that if you're 35, that automatically makes you more intelligent or more versed in a certain subject than a 15-year-old 100% of the time. But common sense would equate more time with more experience and more familiarity with the world around you. I feel like younger people often get extremely defensive when anyone talks about this or these statements are made, and it's almost as though they feel some kind of pressure to surpass or measure up to adults. I'm sorry, but it's not the same. You really can't compare a 15-year-old and a 35-year-old and expect them to have the same experiences. It's like trying to win a race that you haven't even been entered in. And being mature for your age doesn't mean the same thing as being an adult or having experience. I think younger people need to relax and have patience and realize that they don't have to be adults, and it's okay not to know everything. I mean, no one knows everything, you're not expected to. I don't know. To wrap things up, there's a lot of negatives for both younger people and older people in context of, like, their age when navigating through society. But there's positives and negatives for both groups. I feel like everything has become a who's been oppressed the most competition. I know that's probably, I don't mean that in a way to be offensive, I just mean it's become, talking about it and, comparing how oppressed you are as opposed to someone else has become this big thing, and people have kind of lost sight of the goal. Instead of arguing with people about how horrible you've had it and how shitty society has treated you, I think that people really need to start judging people less and treating people well regardless of who they are. I feel like this was very off topic. I'm sorry. I don't know. Sorry that was so intense. Don't be ageist. Don't be racist. Don't be anything-ist. Unless you want to be a pianist, then you can be that. I don't have a good week. Go buy a calendar.